So after a bit of trial and error, along with plenty of luck, I was able to pull off my first solo win in Warzone. The game was actually pretty relaxed for the majority of it, as I'm happy to say that I played it smart and took a calm and calculated approach to the match. I also happened to get 9 kills, which is in no way spectacular, but I hope it at least serves as proof that I didn't spend the match camped out in a building. This video is going to be an analysis stroke commentary where I break down the win for you. I'll be covering the tactics, thought processes, as well as improvements that I'd make to my gameplay, as, even though I did win, I would have liked to have done a few things differently. So my drop for this gameplay was pretty instrumental in my success, I think. I was able to land well within the rings, meaning that I didn't have to do any unnecessary running around later on in the match. I was also able to get my hands on a thermal suppressed SMG, which I actually ended up carrying for the rest of the game. Now as I was stocking up on supplies, I realised that I'd probably be able to afford a lead-on drop far earlier into the match than I would normally be able to. My logic in doing this was that it would enable me to grab my perks quickly, keeping me off UVs and also giving me a big early game advantage over most players, though I knew wouldn't have been able to afford them yet. But as I was amassing the funds, I noticed that one of the houses near the buy station had been looted, so there was probably going to be someone nearby. Getting mowed down whilst on the buy station didn't sound too appealing, so I figured I'd have to deal with this player first. Now as you'll see here, I actually ended up coming across 2 enemies at the same time and did some pretty good on the fly improvisation, and as dealing with 2 people at once in solos is quite tricky, I'm quite proud of it. A quick Molotov on the guy on the stairs was thankfully enough of a distraction that I could deal with the player by the door without being shot in the back. There was definitely a bit of luck here as the guy could have pushed me when the flames died down, but thankfully he didn't. The next few minutes of the match consisted of me grabbing some armour and then hunting the other player who I knew had to be around somewhere. I wasn't sure if he was still camping on the upper floor of that building. I had enough to use the buy station at this point, but it was just too risky. Thankfully, I was able to hear him come up the stairs into my building and pick him off. Now I could finally grab my load up from the buy station and get myself sorted. I figured I'd run with my AX50 class as I already had a decent short to medium range weapon and wanted to be able to pick off some further away players. Quite a lot in this gameplay you'll see me scoping out areas with my thermal SMG and switching to my sniper occasionally to take shots. I kind of struggle to spot enemies or moving objects out on a PC screen. I've never really known why, but this method helps me out personally. Shortly after grabbing my sniper, I happened to spot a gulagger drop in, which was a nice and easy kill. I wasn't sure if there was anyone else in the general area, so I decided to go and check him out for any loot. Probably wasn't worth it. Much better with my class to be getting the drop on someone rather than having to react to being shot at. I decided that I'd be better off leaving the general area and made for the hills in line with where the zone was. I didn't have a reason to loot really, as I was well stocked up, so I figured I'd find a place to settle down until the later rings appeared. I will admit that moving along cliff lines and through forest was not the ideal environment to be in, as cover was pretty sparse, but I didn't really have a better option available. I quickly happened across a well-positioned house that would be perfect for waiting out the next zone in. It offered clear lines of sight out towards stadium and TV station, cover from snipers, and was easy to defend. Given the fact that I was still well within this zone, and the next as it would turn out, there simply wasn't any point in me moving. All I'd end up doing was exposing myself without reason when I was already in a good position. What was crucial though was that I shut all the doors to the house downstairs and set a C4 over the staircase. Now I did end up sitting in this building for quite a while, so I'm going to skip ahead as I don't really get up to a whole lot. What I was making sure to do though was to keep using my heartbeat sensor to check for anyone nearby, as well as staying crouched to keep my movements quiet. The point of using the heartbeat sensor so much was to make sure that no one got the drop on me. When you're playing as passively as this, you're quite vulnerable as you're remaining stationary. By shutting the doors to the building, I'd get an audio warning if someone entered the house, and by using my heartbeat sensor so regularly, I was able to constantly check for approaching enemies. Both would be pretty useful as another player ended up coming straight into the same house as me. Now as he entered the loft and we came face to face, I did try and hit him with my C4 trap. It did miss, but the explosions and smoke produced fortunately gave me a nice advantage over the guy who'd wandered into my home. With a little more spraying and praying than I'd like to admit, he went down. After a bit more sitting in the same building, I actually realised that there was in fact an enemy on the little cyber tower outside of my house. A key bit of gameplay advice here though, is that deciding it's not worth it is sometimes the right decision. I wasn't confident I could get a clear shot on him, so letting him get away was my best option. There just didn't seem any point in going for a kill that I didn't have the confidence I could get. Obviously I knew that he was still nearby, so I kept an eye out for him to make sure that I didn't end up getting flanked. Now at this point it became obvious from the closing gas that I couldn't stay where I was. I wanted to get my moving done early as I knew the gas would force me to rush if I waited until it began to close in. Now I obviously knew this player was to my west, so I decided to aim northeast in order to avoid crossing paths with him until I was in a better position. Fortunately I left myself plenty of time to make my movements in a calculated manner. I routinely scanned horizons and areas with my thermal scope, keeping an eye out for any enemies that may be waiting for me. At the same time made sure to use my heartbeat sensor to check that no one had been missed on my scope. I also had Ghost as part of my class, which meant I didn't have to worry about any enemy UAVs, which saved me a world of stress. Staying out in the open was far from ideal, so I made my way towards a cluster of houses that would offer me good cover. They were nicely within the zone, which meant that I wouldn't be forced to move immediately when the next ring was revealed. At the same time, they also allowed me a great deal of cover, and were easy to defend. It was also handy that I was stocked up on armor plates and equipment, as I didn't have to rush to the nearby buy station and give myself away. At this point, I only realised that we were approaching the final stages of the game, so I decided to stick to the calm and collected approach that got me this far. Unfortunately for me, the next ring would force me to move again from cover, which posed a bit of a problem. The size and number of players left meant that it was pretty likely that I'd come across someone sooner rather than later. Despite this, I opted to move early to save me from getting cut off later on. Moving between buildings seemed safest as they offered enemies a lot of cover. The alternative was running through fields. I quickly spotted the fire station and its lookout tower, which was a slight problem. Every game of Warzone since the dawn of time has had a sniper make that tower home, and I didn't fancy getting shot by one if I could help it. He also would have had a very clear line of sight on me if he had spotted me, so I made moving out of sight my top priority. But here came a great surprise for me as I happened across a fellow player, much to the surprise of both of us. This fight was short and sweet, and I was able to quickly drop him thanks to the SMG I had equipped. A bigger problem had presented itself, however, as I took damage from a third player located behind the one I just killed. At this point I was left with no armour at all and very little health, so I had no choice but to charge into the fire station and pray that I didn't meet anybody soon. It absolutely goes without saying that you should always be carrying a gun that you can use to quickly put an enemy down if you're caught off guard. If I'd had my AX-50 out, then it's safe to say that would have been the end of the game for me. Thankfully, the part of the building that I was in had a few entrances that I could easily guard. I obviously armoured up as fast as possible and tried to plan my next move. I could see a vehicle skirting my building and was not in the best position to return fire. I was also aware that there was more than likely another player on the outside of my building, as it was the last major structure in the zone. Add to this that I still didn't know if the tower had a sniper, and I was in a bit of a pickle. Fortunately, I was blessed with the stroke of luck being that the room of my building remains in the next zone, so I didn't have to move right away. I also discovered an enemy on my heartbeat sensor roughly 20 metres from me, which didn't fill me with confidence as I was now sandwiched between multiple players with time running out. Staying where I was though wasn't going to help, as I risked getting stuck in the building with the zone shrinking, so I made my way upstairs onto the roof as this would give me the best scope and range. There wasn't likely to be anyone behind me, given how close to the edge of the zone my building was. Luck favoured me again here, as if there had been anyone in the sniper tower, there wasn't anyone there by the time I reached the roof. Now from here on, everything started moving pretty quickly. I spotted an enemy making a break across the open grass in front of me, which was an easy kill. He also happened to be being targeted by a player behind him, which made my life easier as he didn't seem to recognise that I was also taking shots at him. You could tell I was nervous as I missed some seriously easy shots. Nevertheless, he went down and never got to use his self-res. Looting him was out of the question as his body was out in the open. Even going near him would probably have seen me die, but I couldn't stay on my roof as the zone was closing, so I decided to aim wide and left, hoping that the zone would provide me with the cover I needed. I knew I had a gas mask and could use it for cover in a pinch. During this run, I did take a hefty amount of damage and had to make use of the meagre cover a tree provided me to reclaim some armour. This was a godsend though, as out in front of me emerged a clueless sniper who I certainly would have walked straight into otherwise. He proved to be an easy kill as the guy simply didn't have a clue where I was. He provided me with some much needed armour, so I had a degree of confidence that at least I was at max health now, and I found myself in a 1v1 and it's safe to say that I was absolutely bricking it. The player wasn't showing up on my heartbeat sensor, so I was going in blind. The centre of the ring had absolutely no cover, so I wasn't about to break across it. I pushed left again and hugged the zone, knowing that he'd most likely be forced to do the same due to the meagre amount of options available. I didn't want to be surprised though, and decided that being the aggressor would be my best option. Thankfully, he had no clue where I was and I caught him running for cover. Unfortunately for me, he did have cold-blooded equipped, which took me by surprise, so I wound up damaging him but not killing him initially. Despite the fact that he had cover now, I knew that he didn't have time to armor up again, and I was able to press my advantage successfully. I hope this video has served to give you some good guidance and pointers of success in Warzone. There's quite a lot to take away from it all, but there's some clear themes. It's far better to be calm and calculated than it is to be aggressive and short-sighted. Playing by cover will always give you an advantage over others, and keeping track of the gas rooms will keep you informed and steady paced. If you can keep a level head and balanced playstyle, you'll be in the best position possible to pull off a win in Warzone solos. There's plenty of luck that is involved, but the skills demonstrated here can give you the best chances of success overall. There are obviously variations in playstyle, and this is just what works for me. I'll be doing more of these videos and covering variations in playstyle in the future, but for now, this one can serve as a good model on which you can draw your own pointers to improve your own performance.